Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the exact mathematical and psychological tipping point of true wealth building. If you've ever felt like you're just totally stuck in the same financial patterns no matter how hard you try, well, you're going to want to pay close attention to this one.
So let's start by challenging a pretty massive myth. When you think about building wealth, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most of us, financial gurus have basically drilled it into our heads that you need $1 million, or at least a massive six-figure salary, to finally stop living in a state of financial panic. We just naturally assume that peace of mind is locked behind these huge, almost impossible-looking walls. But honestly, they're missing something completely fundamental about how money actually works.
Turns out the actual threshold where your entire relationship with money and opportunity completely transforms is way smaller. It's an incredibly attainable milestone. That number is exactly $20,000. This is the real barrier that separates folks who build significant wealth from those who end up spending their whole lives just surviving paycheck to paycheck. And the crazy part is, most people have absolutely no idea this invisible barrier even exists. To really get why this number is so pivotal, think of your financial journey like pushing this massive, heavy boulder up a super steep hill. Just getting it moving and pushing it up to that 20 grand mark requires intense strain. I mean, you are sweating, you're sacrificing, and you're making what feels like very little visible progress. You'll probably even question if it's worth it. But once you crest that hill, once you hit 20 grand, something magical happens. Gravity finally takes over, and the momentum starts effortlessly working in your favor.
Section 1. Escaping Survival Mode.
Okay, so let's explore the very first shift that happens when you reach this crest. It's entirely psychological. When you're completely broke, your brain is trapped in what psychologists call survival mode. Every single decision you make is reactive and filtered through fear and scarcity. You might take a terrible job because, well, you can't afford to be picky. Or you absolutely obsess over minor unexpected expenses because they feel like massive, life-ruining disasters. It's basically like trying to plan a relaxing vacation while your living room is on fire. But reaching this $20,000 milestone completely shifts your brain into growth mode. Suddenly, you're proactive, you're strategic. You finally have the mental bandwidth to actually look at future opportunities.
Vanguard actually did some brilliant research that perfectly illustrates the power of this psychological shift. They found that having just a $2,000 emergency buffer increases your financial well-being by a staggering 21%. Think about that. That is less money than most people spend on a fancy laptop, yet that tiny buffer creates a massive shift in your brain, purely because it starts pulling you out of that panic-driven survival mode.
Now, watch what happens when we expand that savings momentum. When you push that emergency fund to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which for most people lands right around that 20 grand mark, you get an additional 13% boost in your financial well-being. You've officially created enough breathing room for your brain to stop constantly worrying about wealth preservation, and you start actively hunting for wealth-building opportunities.
Section 2. The math of momentum.
So now that we've escaped survival mode, let's look at how the actual math accelerates your wealth. This is where compound interest really starts flexing. Let's say you're saving $1,000 a month, earning an 8% return. Grinding to that first 20 grand takes 19 painful months of sacrifice. But look at the math for your second 20,000. It only takes 17 months. You literally did the exact same amount of work, but now your money is working right alongside you. And it gets almost comical the further you go. By the time you're sitting on a $400,000 portfolio, your money just naturally generates your next 20 grand in a mere 5 months, completely automatically.
You know, people always think the wealthy just have access to these secret, exclusive hedge funds or something. But the real secret isn't exclusive access at all. It is literally just scale. Think about it. A 10% return on $2,000 makes you $200, which is nice. Sure, maybe a nice dinner out. But it's certainly not life-changing. Apply that exact same 10% return to $20,000, though, and suddenly you're making $2,000. That is serious cash flowing right into your account without you lifting a single finger. It's the exact same investment strategy, but the scale is what makes it meaningful.
But to actually reach that scale, you have to go through what is arguably the single most valuable part of this entire process, the identity shift. Look, hitting 20 grand from absolute zero forces you to change who you are. You have to track every single dollar. You have to consistently say no to your impulses and completely resist shiny object syndrome. By doing that over and over, you prove to yourself that you have the discipline to delay gratification. You literally become the type of person who controls your money instead of letting your money control you. And that's not just a financial tactic. That is a fundamental life skill.
Because of this new identity, your daily decision-making completely transforms. You basically stop sweating the small stuff, the micro decisions. When you're broke, you agonize over a $3 coffee, or you stress over buying generic versus name brand groceries. But once you have that solid 20 grand foundation, you realize those micro decisions are largely irrelevant to your long-term wealth. Instead, you free up all that mental energy for macro decisions, like optimizing your housing costs, maximizing your career income, and making sure your investment strategy is totally rock solid.
Section 3. Walking away money. Building right on that newfound confidence, let's look at how this milestone completely transforms your career. Having $20,000 gives you what is universally known as walking away money. Suddenly, you are negotiating from a position of strength instead of desperation. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you're kind of trapped, right? You can't ask for a raise or a pushback on a toxic boss because you desperately need that next paycheck just to survive the month. But with a 20 grand cushion, you can confidently ask for that raise. You can push back on unreasonable demands. You can even explore other career opportunities, all because you don't actually need them to say yes.
Section 4. The Opportunity Cost Trap.
As amazing as all this sounds, there is a massive, crucial warning we need to discuss right now, because this is the exact moment where a lot of people accidentally reset all of their hard-earned progress. Welcome to the danger zone. I see this happen constantly. You hit the milestone, you feel that incredible psychological relief, and you immediately sprint to the dealership to blow it. People decide they quote-unquote deserve a new car to reward themselves for being so disciplined, or they fund some huge lifestyle upgrade. Basically, they treat the foundation of their financial future as a temporary reward for good behavior.
Let's break down exactly why doing that is so incredibly dangerous. It comes down to opportunity cost. The literal second you drive a $30,000 new car off the lot, it actively destroys wealth, immediately losing roughly 20% of its value. But honestly, it's way worse than that. Once you start viewing purchases through the lens of opportunity cost, you realize that a $30,000 car isn't just 30 grand. If you had just left that money invested instead, it could have grown to over $200,000 over the next 20 years. That single car purchase is actively costing you your future freedom. Which brings us to this brilliantly simple truth. The person driving the flashy new car next to you in traffic is probably incredibly stressed about money, while the person driving the older, reliable car is quietly building wealth and sleeping perfectly soundly at night. Flashy emotional purchases might give the illusion of success to your neighbors, but make no mistake, they are exactly what keeps the average person trapped in an endless paycheck-to-paycheck cycle.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a really hard look at the opportunity costs in your own life. Seriously ask yourself, what is your current financial trajectory actually costing your future freedom? Are you trading your long-term independence for short-term illusions of wealth? The $20,000 tipping point is out there waiting for you. The only question is, are you ready to start pushing that boulder up the hill today?